Okay, students, now we will talk about production in long run. How production is different in short run and long run. We can differentiate it with the help of production function. Our output, quantity, or production you can show with the help of any abbreviation like Q for quantity produced, is function of labor and capital. So we assume a very simple production function like this. In short run, your capital is fixed and labor is variable input. But in long run, both inputs are variable input. There is no fixity of any factor in long run. This is a main difference between short run and long run. So when we talk about this relationship between input and output in long run, again you will find out three types of situations: increasing, decreasing, and constant. So your total production will increase at maybe increasing rate, decreasing rate, or constant rate in long run also. But here our problem is that in short run we were having a problem of fixity of factor, and just because of that we were experiencing sometimes increasing returns, sometimes decreasing returns. Then what is the factor which will affect returns in the long run? Because in long run your capital is also not fixed, both are variable inputs. If both are variable inputs and you can increase their supply in any amount, maybe you can increase labor and capital by 2 times, 3 times, or 2%, 5%, 10%. So you can increase supply of labor and capital as per your requirement. There is no fixity of any factor. So the factor which will affect returns in a long run will be scale. Yes. Whether you are producing on a small scale or on a big scale, so your scale of production will affect your returns. So in long run you will be talking about three situations: increasing returns to scale, increasing returns to scale, decreasing returns to scale, and again constant returns to scale. So again three situations will be there, but here we will be talking increasing returns to scale, decreasing returns to scale, and constant returns to scale. And it will happen because you are producing on different scales. So if you want to express these three situations with the help of equation, you can do one thing. You can express like this: your quantity produced is function of labor and capital. Suppose you are increasing our inputs by n times. So let me multiply our inputs by n. What will happen to your output? Obviously your output will also increase by some amount. Suppose your output is increased by m times. So I mean to say, if we increase our inputs n times, our output is increased m times. Now we will compare m and n. If m and n both are equal, this is the situation of constant returns to scale. Means if you increased your input by 2 times, your output is also increased by 2 times. If your m is greater than n, it means you increased your inputs maybe 2 times and your output is increased by 3 times or 4 times. So m is greater than n. This is the situation of increasing returns. If m is less than n, I mean you have increased your inputs by some amount, maybe suppose 4 times, but your output increased 3 times, suppose. This is the situation. So m is less than n. So this is the situation of decreasing returns. So constant returns to scale, increasing returns to scale, and decreasing returns to scale. But why it happens? To explain why it happens in a long run, we need to talk about two terms. One is economies of scale, and another term is diseconomies of scale. So what is meaning of economies of scale and diseconomies of scale? When you are producing on a bigger scale, because of that, if your cost of production per unit output is decreasing, means you are getting some benefits because of producing on a bigger scale. This situation is called economies of scale. When you are increasing your output in long run and you are producing on a bigger scale, and if you have to experience some disadvantages, I mean to say, if your cost of production per unit is increasing in this situation, this is called diseconomies of scale. When economies of scale happens, you will get increasing returns. When diseconomies of scale happens, you will get decreasing returns to scale. When there is balance between these two phenomena, you will get constant returns. To show increasing, decreasing and constant returns to scale, you can use diagrams, like you can use this type of diagram also. Here you show percentage change in inputs, and here percentage change in output. So if you draw a 45-degree line, this is a case of constant returns, and if this line is close to your OX axis, it means you are increasing your inputs by more amount and your output is increasing at lesser percentage. So this is situation for constant returns. This is a situation for decreasing returns, because percentage change in input is more than percentage change in output. And if you draw a line which is very close to a y-axis, I mean above this line, if some line is there, it will show your increasing returns, because percentage change in input is less and percentage change in output will be more. So these are very simple ways, I mean with the help of that equation or with the help of this diagram, you can show what is happening in long run. So let me revise main points here. Increasing returns happen because of economies of scale, and decreasing returns to scale happen because of diseconomies of scale. When there is balance between economies of scale and diseconomies of scale, then you will experience constant returns to scale. One more thing here I want to add, that economies of scale and diseconomies of scale both are of two types: external and internal. What is external and internal economies of scale? When you are internal, okay, when you are increasing size of your plant, means when you are increasing production in your plant and because of that you are getting benefits, these are internal economies. But when your industry is increasing size, means if more and more plants are being opened in your area or in the same line which you are producing, I mean whatever commodity you are producing, other units are also producing same commodities and they are increasing their size. Because of that, if you are getting some benefits, that is external economies of scale. Similarly, diseconomies of scale are again of two types, internal and external. If you are producing more and because of that you are getting some you are getting some losses, because of that it is internal diseconomies. And if other plants are increasing size, if your industry is increasing size, and because of that if you are getting some losses, that is external diseconomies of scale. Here I want to give you example of economies and diseconomies of scale. I mean, of every point I will explain with the help of a example. So first, economies of scale, which is internal. Okay, internal economies of scale. Let me give you one example. Suppose earlier you were producing on a small scale, but now as you are producing on a bigger scale, so you can hire a cheap transport. Means earlier you were hiring a small truck and you were paying suppose 100 rupees for that. Now you are hiring a big truck which is having a double capacity, but now you are paying 150 rupees. So whatever you are paying is not doubled, but the service you are getting is doubled. So because of producing on a bigger scale, you are getting this benefit. This is internal economies of scale. Now let's talk about external economies of scale. Now your other firms which are producing the same product, they are producing on a bigger scale, and there is a market created for your vendors. Now you don't need to go to your vendor, but vendor is providing that raw material or whatever you need at your place, because many other firms are also there which are demanding same product. So they are providing you any product or service like information. You need information regarding the market for your product, but not only you, but many other firms also need that. And because of that, if some firm is doing research and it is providing data to all these units, means it will be provided to you too at a very cheap cost. So this is external economies of scale, because other firms are also producing on a bigger scale, and because of that you are getting benefit. So this is example of external economies of scale. Now let's talk about diseconomies of scale. Because of producing on a very big scale, now supervision is not efficient, and because of that you are getting some losses. This is example of internal diseconomies of scale. As all the firms are increasing their sizes, all other firms are producing more, they are demanding raw material and inputs. Because of that, demand of raw material and inputs is hiked or increased, and it is available at a higher price now. Because of that, you are experiencing some losses here. This is called external diseconomies of scale. Okay, what is internal? Okay, we have already discussed internal diseconomies. Supervision is not properly done. That was one example I have given. So it is all about the long run. In long run, we talk about returns to scale, because our increasing, decreasing or constant returns are happening because of producing on a different scales. So that's why it is called returns to scales. So we use this term in long run.